Hi everyone. This panel discussion will be basically about the role of an ICT head in a class, in a school, right? What is that role, and how is it that we can actually effectively implement ICT in the school? So I have with me 4 really amazing educators. Guys, would you like to come on board? I will get them to introduce themselves to you, yeah? So just very briefly, what I do, kind of like the previous speaker, is I work with a bunch of schools with regards to the effective usage of technology in the classroom, not the technological aspect, but the pedagogical aspect. Really, what is the problem that they're trying to solve? And let's do something about it, whether it's something small or something big. Let's make it happen, right? Let's get the effective usage of technology in the classroom done. So I will get the panelists to introduce themselves. Greg?
Okay, I'm Greg Wilkinson. I was previously the Director of ICT at Trinity Lutheran College. I'm now the Director of Digital Learning and Innovation. I work in the pedagogy side, e-learning side, anything that's digital within the school. A little bit about me, I'm an avid surfer. I surf 4 mornings a week. I have 2 kids, but I'm a passionate educator. And the thing that drew me into technology with education is how we engage students. I've had the opportunity of working with lots of schools in Australia in a similar role to some of our other panellists in strategic planning and directions of integration of ICT in the classroom. Our current school, Trinity, is a K-12 school. We have 1,100 students, and I work across the college from prep to or kindy to 12.
All right, Rena.
Hi everyone, my name is Soofrina, and I'm the EdTech coordinator and a senior educational therapist with the Dyslexia Association of Singapore. So the usage of ICT for dyslexics within this DAS, Dyslexia Association of Singapore, started about 3 to 5 years ago. So ever since then, it's been still quite new. And as for my role, because I'm doing my master's in instructional design and technology, I'm able to contribute to the team, not so much on the technical aspects, but more on the instructional design, which is very related to the pedagogical design of the lesson. So, yeah, so that's about me.
All right, Shin.
Hi everyone, my name is Shin, and I'm a Chinese school, primary school teacher from Malaysia. Yeah, I'm just a teacher. And I also one of the Google Educator Group leader in Malaysia. So in my school, how well they're using the ICT, my school haven't yet one-to-one, but our whole class, whole school, the classroom, we have the basic setup, okay? And then for the students, we have the little IT warrior playing as a role, little assistant in transformation in ICT. So the our teachers is like starting using the Google Drive since 4 years ago. And then we try to gather all the teaching material put in the Google Drive, and then we try to like more paperless in our school. So in this year, our whole school teachers get certified in Google Educator Level 1.
Nice. She mentioned she is just a teacher. Well, there's no such thing as just a teacher. A teacher is very, very important. So she is a teacher. So that's no just. Yeah.
As a teacher.
Yeah. And we have Jamie.
Hi, my name is Jamie Stark, and I work at International College Hong Kong in Hang Lok Yuen, which is New Territories of Hong Kong. I work for Through Train IB school, focused in the primary section, PYP. And through there, I've, I guess, progressed from being a year 1 class teacher, just a teacher. Year 1 class teacher. From there, I've moved on to being a technology integrator, and now working as part of senior management, as well as in the classroom integrating and coaching staff with the use of technology. So we're only about 450 students, so it's a small community-based school where I can get to know all the students and all the community members, and you know, it's a great job, and get to see everybody and get into all the different classrooms. So.
what Jamie didn't mention here, he's actually the real face behind Stark Industries. It's not Iron Man, it's this man over here. So, with regards to, I mean, we all have 4 panelists, all 4 of us are in a school, and it looks like we are all leading the ICT department in the school. How effective has the ICT usage been in your school? Greg, maybe?
Trinity's been running a BYOD program now for about 6 or 7 years. It initially started off in iPads, and I think I came into the school 2 years ago and sort of took a step back, had a look at where the school was currently at, and the foundation was, I think it had a reasonable foundation, but it was still not uptaken at that stage by all. Over the last 2 years, we've rolled out a new learning management system, and I was actually just looking at some of the data before. We're seeing a greater uptake, and I think our base level is pretty consistent across the board about trying to reflect what's happening in our real classroom in the virtual space. So I think as a whole, you know, I could probably tick off the box on the SAMR model and say, yep, substitution is happening, modification, you know, significantly happening, but above that, only in pockets. And our next stage is sort of to look into and how we address that.
Okay. Rina.
Right, so at the DAS, the implementation of ICT tools, especially iPads, smart boards, or even the Mimeo Teach smart bars and etc. While we introduced these tools about 5 years ago, the take-up rate was not that was really very kind of low. So we had to look back at we had to look back at what are the areas that we will have to work on, which is how would we convince teachers, or rather give them that conviction that ICT is one of the key tools in the classroom, and how we can enhance or elevate the lesson objectives. And another thing that we had to deal with was with the level of experience or exposure to ICT tools amongst educators, because in my observation, educators usually teach the way they learned about 15, 20 years ago. So usually it's like very passive, direct instruction and etc. So bringing in some tools was rather new. So these were the 2 things that we were dealing with while we were doing the implementation in these 5 years.
Okay, Shin.
Thank you. Yeah, just because I'm just a teacher, really. I share the experience as a teacher. So one of the reasons that why I'm using the ICT in the classroom, right? So we are Chinese-based school, and then the students and myself I use Mandarin-based. So when it comes to the English subject, so we try. I try to like. Running a training program with the UK through the Google Hangouts, set up the Google Hangouts and let the students come in and then communicate with the students who are using the native language. And then I mean, like through all these kind of tools, right, I really see the transform, the difference after this project. Yeah. Okay.
And Jamie?
Yeah, at my school, I remember starting back maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we invested in maybe, I don't know, 15 iPads and said, geez, what are we going to do with these, you know? And since then, we've moved all the way up to practically a one-to-one model and have scaled teachers' access to using devices and their own skills throughout the school, which has seen a lot of benefits, obviously, with the student learning. And each year, we're trying to work on that and plan for it in our strategic plan of how we're going to continually improve now that we actually have the devices. You know, a couple of years ago, there was never a comment from teachers saying too much, and then all of a sudden said we don't have enough, and that that really changed and was eye-opening, and we're adjusting to that at school, and I think we've done a very good job in terms of getting all students on board and teachers on board to use it for purposeful learning.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, right? How effective do you think the level of implementation of ICT in your school is?
I think if I look and I walk around our classrooms, I would say as a whole, they're doing a pretty good job. There's a pretty consistent base of, say, a 3 throughout the types of things that they're doing. There's connections to other schools globally through Skype or Zoom or different interfaces. But there is still classrooms that are just at that replication stage. So yeah, I'd say it's a good base, around a 3.
All right, Rena?
I would rate mine as 3.5. Yeah, because when we started, the pickup rate was really very low, and teachers were on the, were merely using it as a tool of substitution. Like what I mean by substitution is you can get a composition written on paper and pen, by paper and pen, or you can type out a composition and the iPad becomes a very expensive worksheet. Yeah, so we started from that stage, and right now teachers are more onto the redefining the lessons, whereas such that the lesson objectives would not be achievable without that technology. So yeah, 3.5.
Yeah, from my school, 3.5 as well. As what she said just now, yeah, I would notice that the same thing goes to our school. And then another thing that I will like, not all the teachers happy using ICT. And then the connectivity in our school is not so well yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think one of the biggest things is that with technology is that the goalposts keep changing. Every year we're adjusting to shifts in technology and what we have access to and the different platforms that are available. So it makes my job, I find, as a technology coach quite interesting, because each year I'm trying to do something at an earlier age that I did in the past year. So I think similar to what Greg's experience, there is still pockets of staff that are, substituting something on paper for something on a Google Doc and believing truly that that is using tech purposely, when we can, amplify that and do it in different ways and try and move the goalposts further for those guys in the classroom. So I think we're still in a process of learning. There are pockets of staff that do it really effectively, and those are the champions that we're trying to push to the staff and trying to get everyone to buy in when they can see it's not just the leader who can do it, but their fellow colleagues can also do these things, and maybe those are the people that they can kind of bridge the gap with.
All right. So let me just set a base over here, right? We're not here to discuss why is ICT important, because we already know that we all have our own reasons as to why ICT is important. We are here to really kind of discuss how is it that ICT, the role the ICT head can effect this change in the classroom, in the school. That is the most important, because that is what is lacking. Most schools have the resources, right? They all have the money. We are seeing schools which have got iPads, one-to-one devices and everything, but they have LMSs. All schools in Singapore have got an LMS. They have got wonderful Wi-Fi, but ICT, technology is not being used effectively, right? So as a role, as an ICT head, what is your role? How have you kind of helped implement this change in your school? Greg?
Okay, so my role in implementing change is to provide a direction forwards for the college and layer and plan that direction so that all staff are on board, but also that it's achievable within the timeframes that we're setting. So over the past 18 months, I've been leading our ICT committee to look at a vision for ICT. It's been an 18-month process to get a clear vision forwards with that team. From that team, we've now got an implementation plan that will take over the next 3 years, and we'll build on the foundation of where we're currently at. One of the things that we clearly want to be achieving is knowing what, the bread and butter, so to speak, that when every teacher comes into our school, what do they need to know? What are the things they need to know on the LMS? What training modules they need to complete? What do they need to be able to do come week 1, week 2, week 5, week 10? So that sort of stuff is taken care of. And so we can move then from the bread and butter and then start looking at to the innovation, the new things that are constantly coming in, the VR, the augmented reality, the connecting with other schools, and then we can start to lighthouse those projects. So we can bring those into the classroom at an achievable way and then have our teachers roll them out and share them with other teachers in a way that is meaningful for each other. So I think it's starting to normalise innovation over that cycle as well. I think the other clear thing in the role is to provide a digital pedagogy plan. So what do we want to achieve in things like rotational learning or blended learning, so that when a teacher goes to use technology in the classroom, it's clear about why we want to use it and what we're using it for. So we know that these things are happening over here to replicate what's happening, you know, the virtual classroom in the real space and vice versa. You've got the innovation happening, but we know that they're starting to, I guess, innovate by thinking about the pedagogy that's happening within that space as well.
Right. So for ours, it was more like sharing with teachers about, sharing with educators about how ICT instructional designs can be aligned with their very familiar, like such as Bloom's taxonomy and stuff, so that teachers can see the relationship and that they are not actually very different concepts. And secondly was to lead by example. We set up, within our organization, we set up a sharing platform, which was actually Google+. And we get teachers to post either a picture or a 3-minute video as into what they are doing with ICT. And we got other colleagues to comment, ask questions. And then, you know, and basically this idea of sharing was very good because it raises awareness. And not just awareness, but how differently can one tool be used. And then we also were looking into grooming ICT leaders within the teacher community.
Yeah, Shin.
Oh, okay. So as I'm a teacher, so what I do is just simple, just diagnose what's the teacher pain point and the challenge nowadays, a lot of workloads, all these things, right? So try to look for the solution, and once I know that this can work, I just share to the teachers. Yes.
Okay, Jamie?
I think mine kind of aligns with what Greg was mentioning before, just about the whole strategic plan. We just kind of went through ours at our school just past week, actually, trying to set out that 3-year vision and trying to really come up with some concrete goals of where we want to be 3 years down the line, and whether or not they can be accomplished, and how we can break those up into smaller segments so that we can feel a sense of accomplishment. Lots of times we actually create these action plans and never go back to see whether or not we, you know, achieve the goals, right? And we've gone through that just to feel some, you know, goodwill just based on what we've gone through, and from there just move those goalposts forward, like I said, 2-3 years down the line, and what do we want to look like? But also keeping in mind that lots of times at our schools we're spinning so many plates, and we're trying to focus solely on, you know, 3 or 4 innovations or 3 or 4 initiatives that we can achieve at our school that will allow us to accomplish that. And again, kind of pointing back to his earlier comments, is getting those lighthouse moments where we can push those out through staff members. And I think with a smaller school that I'm working at, I'm very fortunate to be able to find those beacons and be able to use them to my advantage in my own role and the school's role to really get that, you know, that buy-in outside of my own position.
So to simplify, it would be like getting the strategy done, right? Planning the right strategy for the school. That's a very, very important. That's something that Greg and Jamie, you are kind of doing very well, right? And then followed by, of course, the right training that is given to the teachers, finding the right people, the early adopters, I would call it, right? The ones who would take the extra effort to make the change happen, right? What are the problems you're facing when trying to make this change in your school? Let's go ladies first this time. So, Rina?
The problem that we faced and we have been facing is the continuity of, you know, the early adopters, the continuity of their passion. Sometimes they kind of drop out, so we need to, you know, keep showing them, showing the good side of ICT to them, so that they can go and deliver that message to their smaller community or that learning center. Yeah, so that was one of the challenges that I've faced and I'm still facing.
Yeah, Shin?
Yeah, I wonder why. As what I say, I'm one of the Google Educator Group leader. So I'm running a lot of workshops for past 4 years. And then every time, even like outside from the school, right, I'm trying to like open out the workshop. The open for registration is like overbooked within 4 hours. And then it's like sharing with more than 1,000 teachers. But once teachers are like very happy to learn with me, I can see that the need is there. But I wonder why when I'm back to the school, when I want to do the sharing, and then the teachers is like, okay.
So you're saying that you can when you do a workshop outside for other teachers, you get a lot of people, but within your school, when you do it, you don't get a response.
Unless they have the needs, or else they want like really, unless they need it, they need to know what is that and how to do that, or else, right, they want is like take the initiative, sit down together and share learning with you.
Yeah, well, that sounds like it. That's what coaching is, right? The third eye perspective. I mean, teaching our own kids. Greg, you have kids. I don't know. Jamie, do you have kids?
No, I don't.
Rena? No. Well, Greg is the only one. You have taught other students before, right? And you have taught your own kids. Is it easier to teach the other kids or your own kids? Right? It's always for the other ones. The third eye perspective is much more. So I guess that's why it would be much simpler to, train the other group of people rather than the ones in your school. What about Jamie?
I mean, we all face different challenges in our roles, I'm sure. And, one of the things is always kind of changing the old perception that the IT person is the specialist, therefore they lead the lesson. And it's still one of those issues at our school. Sometimes you walk into the classroom, they're expecting you to go up there and put on a show while they kind of watch you do your thing and support when necessary. And it's just changing that mindset that, as an educator, we're all responsible for teaching tech now. It's prevalent in our economy. We all have to be down that path, right? And it's kind of getting them to buy into this and what we're trying to accomplish. So it's creating that time for support and for planning and for strategizing together and not just seeing it as someone else's job to do, and taking that initiative, right? So there's always going to be some sort of issue with whether staff are seeing you as the leader or the coach, right? And just making that time as a useful resource.
Yeah, Greg?
I was just thinking and reflecting on the question before and thinking about teaching my own kids or teaching the kids at school. And I think that I'm in a unique position where my kids go to the school that I work at. And I use them as examples. They're in prep in year one. And it's also, this is probably a good story which is about that idea of time and how we sort of use the tools at our disposal, I think, in an e-learning role to make change with our teachers. And I think time's one of the biggest ones, but it's also giving them the opportunity and the chance to see the potential and the need to change. And I think that's an important thing too, is to think about what is that pedagogical disposition to change and make change when we're already doing things that work. And I think that's a big challenge for anyone in an e-learning role. I had an example of my son who's an avid Minecraft user. I've got to limit him to an hour a day. But he likes to watch tutorials on YouTube, YouTube for kids, on how to play Minecraft. And I was saying to my prep teachers, my year one teachers, I had a meeting with them to talk about using video to teach skills in class. And they all said to me, there's no chance. These kids aren't going to watch it, they're not going to learn from it. So I took a video of my son learning Minecraft and then going and playing and learning more things than I could teach him, and then brought that back to them and said, here's a good example for you of one of your students already doing it. And I guarantee that there's more in your classroom doing it. So I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is often about how we can make meaningful ways for our teachers to use technology in innovative ways, where we get that innovation from, but how we change that pedagogical disposition at times as well.
Okay, that's very nice. So, I mean, if there were a whole, let's just say everyone here was an ICT specialist, right, in their school, what would you tell them? What can you tell them to make sure that when they go back, they can start implementing ICT in their classroom effectively? What can they do? What are the steps? What do you think? Greg?
Okay, I'll start off. I think the key thing there is get your leaders on board, find your shining lights, your lighthouse staff, but try and develop some of those that are tech resistors. I've got a really good example of one of my science staff members. Don't see the point of using technology at all. He was 55 plus. I rolled out a OneNote project with 12 teachers and I said, I want you in it. You've got to be a part of it because if you can use it, David, anyone can. So we got him in, I G'd him up, got him all excited, and I spent extra time with him every day to get him involved and seeing the possibility and potential with it. And I think he's a good example of making sure that some of the resistors, you move into being those shining beacons and those lighthouse people as well. Because if you can get those people on board, then the potential and the possibilities that everyone can do it. So that to me is really important. Start small and build upon that. The more people that you can have sharing ideas, so you run a project with a couple of people here and a couple there and a couple there, and then get them to share, it reduces that load and allows you to keep focusing on what comes next, and it sort of trains them to be an expert. And I think that's important too, that we train other people to be experts in our school on certain things as well. So they're sort of start small, build big, get people on side, and build your beacons and your lighthouses, especially the resistors if you can get one or two of those on board.
That's very nice. Rena?
Right. Very similar to Greg's, my suggestion would be to look at the bigger picture and break it down into either biannual or even termly goals, as in what kind of knowledge or skills we want to impart to the teachers. And then in my organization, actually, I do not really have face-to-face training, ICT training sessions for the teachers, because in my observation, when teachers come for EdTech, as in we call it EdTech training, so when they come for EdTech training, and then they bring their iPads or their laptops along, and then they are just passively following myself or my colleagues are demonstrating certain tools. And sometimes it's very difficult to know if they have completely embraced what this tool can do for them, because they're just looking at what I'm demonstrating. And then usually the class size is also quite big, like we cater to about 25 to 30 teachers. So it's very difficult to go individually and see what they can create out of this newly gained knowledge. So probably is to do a bit of blended learning, like pass them this information. And then when they come back for a face-to-face session, they would have to have, designed a particular activity using some of the suggested tools. So that would, that means that in that training session, right, it's not really passive, and there's a lot of sharing of ideas using this pool of tools and what you can do with it. So that will be a lot more beneficial for teachers.
Okay, Shin.
Yeah. As what I mentioned, my challenge, my problem facing in the school, right? And then this is the reason why I joined the Google Educator group. I need to leverage the network, the community to help my school. I find my teammates from other school, and then we try to put ourselves thinking like, if I'm the teacher who are learning new things, what I wish to see in this workshop. So all the times I will sit down together with my team and redesign the workshop. So most of the time we were thinking like gamify the workshops. It's like station games, it's like kind of like a fleet classroom, or how is it, let the teacher experience how we're going to use the tools, the tech tools in this classroom, this section.
Leveraging the power of the community, huh?
Yes.
Two brains are better than one, as you know.
Yeah, I love
right?
it. Okay, thank you.
Jamie.
Yeah, just building on what Greg said, is one thing that works at our school is actually getting staff to lead different sessions in something that we call splinter groups. So on like a Wednesday afternoon, we'll actually have different teachers running a different activity using technology. It could be as easy as just teaching teachers what is Kahoot versus how to use our free learning platform for self-directed learning, and how to create modules through there that staff could learn. It's trying to empower our own staff and those who are willing to take those risks, to lead those small groups and then share back. And if you can get, like you mentioned, if you get one of those resistors into the groups and seeing what you can do, it really helps with everybody coming on board. This year I teach coding with 4-year-olds, and in the past year, it's, why are you doing that? Oh, it's too hard, it's too hard. Well, it's not too hard, just watch, right? And then once you take part, after a couple of weeks, they're saying, when can we do more coding? Right, so it just takes that extra practice. If you can get everybody to kind of help out and join in, and get your assistant teachers to help in as well, it really builds that capacity at school to leverage change. Yeah, so lots of positives.
Well, I think that's very nice. I hope really you have kind of learned, or more like understood how these people, or just teachers, have effectively kind of used technology in the classroom. Any questions from the floor? Anyone would like to ask any of us anything? So that's a no. And well, time doesn't permit us to go on. So that's it. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.